Palante and then Oviedo, and I don't know what order they're going to be in, but what did you think of the choices?
Well, I've been thinking Palante for a while. When he didn't get in this game and didn't get in yesterday's game, I figured he was going to pitch tomorrow one game. And I watched the post-game show, and Ollie did not specify an order, so I don't know what they're both going to start. And Palante has been a starter for the 2 minor league seasons he's had. 31 out of 34 games he's pitched in have been starts until he got to the big leagues. So that shouldn't be a problem for him to get 4 innings. Oviedo has been alternately good and bad at Memphis this year, but he should be able to give the innings. And they still got 2 or 3 long. They got 3 long guys available too. And Woodford will be activated tomorrow as the 27th guy, probably, if not added to the roster, but certainly as the 27th guy. And Verhagen didn't pitch today, nor did Patrick Naughton. So they got 5 guys there that can cover. Can they get 12 innings out of those 5 guys? Maybe. They might get 13 or 14 innings out of those 5 guys.
Yeah, it's a good point the way you laid it out. You're absolutely right about that. And I'm looking forward to seeing both of those guys pitch because Palante has been, needless to say, very impressive and mature beyond his years. And it'll be interesting to see, in this role, even though, like you pointed out, it's a role familiar with him. But if it would be, if it's going to be his first major league start, I just want to see how he navigates through that, especially if the wind's blowing out or something. But same applies to Oviedo because we know he's talented. He just he didn't throw strikes last year, and then he lost his confidence. But man, this is a really good opportunity for him to sort of make a second impression. So I wish him well. He seems like a good guy.
He is a good guy, and there's no question that they rushed him into the 4 a little too soon, both in 20 and 21. He's pitched in 19 games, and he hadn't won any of them, which is not a good look. He didn't lose them all, but I think he's 0-8. And so, but he had some big games last year and just didn't win, and then he had some that didn't win either. So he's still a part of their future because, believe it or not, Wainwright is not going to pitch forever. I don't know. I say that now, but that sounds like blasphemy almost, but you got some guys that will be moving on from the rotation in a couple of years here, and Wainwright maybe in one more year. So Oviedo still figures. Liberatore was disappointing last night, though. He hasn't been great. He was okay his first start, pretty good the second start, and not very good last night.
He's really overmatched against right-handed batters in particular. Not that he in those 3 starts, and I won't read the numbers. I mean, it's not like he dominated left-handed hitters either. He really didn't. But boy, this right-handed batters just beat him up, And Milwaukee not so much, but Pittsburgh and the Cubs certainly did. So and he didn't have good numbers against right-handed pitchers at Memphis. So he's got to come up with a way to neutralize right-handed bats, and the Cardinals, you have to help him come up with that solution because that it's really a legitimate problem.
And we may find, especially with today's evidence, that Thompson might be the better bet than Liberatore in the long run here. He got right-handed hitters out today pretty well. Now the game was decided, whereas Liberatore was pitching in a close game and pitching from behind a little bit. But Thompson was excellent today, and whether he stays around tomorrow is another matter because they can't use him until next Tuesday or Wednesday. So they might want to send him back for a few days. Although, you have to decide, can we afford to be without him for 10 days? That's the deal,
Right. Good point.
And it might even be 15 for pitchers. I'll have to look into that. But it's long. It's a long time to be not without a guy you think can help you. So maybe he will stay around for a while. And with an off day Monday, maybe he can pitch Tuesday or Wednesday. But he was very impressive today, and more impressive than some of the other guys that they've been kind of floating in there to those middle roles. Whitley was already sent out. McFarland being another left-hander, and Naughton. No, they were not going to keep all 3 of those guys, Naughton, McFarland, and Thompson. That's for sure. To go with Cabrera, they won't have 4 left-handers in the bullpen, so 1 or 2 of those guys will be gone.
Well, I know who I would choose to be gone, but that's just me.
Well, he did throw some ground balls last night. He got in the game and he loaded the bases, but he did get some ground ball outs. His first inning was good. He had 2 ground ball outs and an infield hit and then a pop up. Then they nicked him, for a couple runs in the next inning. Although Whitley walked in one of them, but he also hit Contreras in the foot to load the bases, which was not a very good idea. But so McFarland is on a short rope probably, but he does have the history of getting a lot of double plays for him last year, and he's different than all those other left-handers as far as how he pitches.
I don't think he needs anyone to tell him this, and that certainly me. But it's like the advice would be to get a lot of ground balls here. Do that very quickly. So if he shows,
you mean tomorrow?
yeah. If he shows signs of just kind of tightening things up a little bit, I'll leave him alone. But man, it's been bad. So. I think Amar Mall and Maddox have actually done a really good job of kind of navigating through this challenging time. It's never going to be perfect, obviously, but I think they've planned it well. I think for the most part it's gone really, really well. Now, I'm saying this before tomorrow, which it could all go boom, but I think they've done okay. What do you think?
I think they've done great, and they've done, now you look at what's happened the last 3 games, they haven't used Cabrera, Gallegos, or Helsley. So in theory, those guys could all pitch 2 games tomorrow if they're used, sparingly. They could all pitch an inning in each game, I think, or get outs in each game because they've been off for 3 days. That's the perfect setup. If those other guys can get them, those other guys tomorrow we mentioned earlier in the show only have to get them to the 7th inning tomorrow. Those other guys can take the 7th, 8th, and 9th, both games, I think.
Rick Hummel with us, the great commish, Baseball Hall of Fame writer, Post-Dispatch, STLtoday.com. And commish, what are your impressions so far? It's how many weeks we going on with Nolan Gorman? He missed the 3 with the back problem. But what are your impressions of young Gorman?
Oh, he's got dynamite power.
He sure does.
He's going to be a 25, 30 home run guy. Will he end up as a second baseman? I don't know. I think he'll end up as a left fielder eventually, but he has played okay at second base, and when they have all their weapons available to him, that might be the position he plays. O'Neill's going to play left field when he comes back, at least for a while. You're not going to not have him go on an option and then come back and not play him. You're going to play him, and if he doesn't come around, though, you do have an option of Gorman or Yepes or both. Of those 2 guys, I think Yepes will be more likely to be the designated hitter than Gorman. I think Gorman might be a little more versatile in the field, maybe. Yepes plays left and right okay. And first base, I don't think great. So I think I see him more as a designated hitter than a fielder in the big picture, long run. Maybe not this year, but in the future. And if you had to choose between him and Gorman as your DH, it would be Yepes.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at the offensive talent that they have, the pool of talent, and it's actually impressive. And I'm including guys even at AAA now like Alec Burleson, the left-handed swinging corner outfielder who's just putting up huge numbers. And you go down to AA, and Jordan Walker's fantastic. He just turned 20. And, you got Mason Wynn, and I'm leaving some guys out, but you know where I'm going with this, and they have a surplus almost. And I know that the pieces all don't fit right now, and it's going to be a challenge to fit all the pieces. And, there's a chance you make a mistake, you make a wrong call on one of these guys. But do you think Cardinals fans should take a harder look at this and realize that maybe this is going to be one hell of an offense in the near future? It's not bad now. It's pretty good, but it could be monstrous down the road here a little bit.
And we haven't mentioned Brendan Donovan, who seems to be in the middle of everything. He's still hitting close to 300, and
right.
He plays 4 or 5 positions acceptably. I think I don't know if they put him at first base very often, but he made a great play in the outfield today. Maybe he should have let Newtbar catch that ball, but he caught it himself going away from the infield as a second baseman and threw home to get a big out when the Cubs were still in the game.
Yeah, he's really amazing. He doesn't look like a rookie. He's so calm all the time. And, he gets on base all the time. Like I was talking about this earlier, hitters in baseball that have not like 95 plate appearances, and I selected 95 because that's what he has. Going into today, he was number 3 in the majors in on-base percentage, and I was reading some of this earlier. He's got an OPS higher than some of the biggest names in baseball, including all those shortstops that Cardinals fans wanted to, give $300 million to, and Kyle Schwarber and all these other. He's got a higher OPS so far this season than Wander Franco and Vlad Guerrero Jr. Now, I'm not saying that's going to hold up, but this guy's really something. I mean, I thought that he'd have a chance to be with the team. I knew the Cardinals liked him a lot, but my goodness, given his composure and how smart he is with his approach, I don't know that this is a guy that'll go off the cliff. Like, in other words, this would be a fluke. He doesn't seem like a fluky player. I don't think he could he's not going to be able to sustain that on-base percentage that high, but he does not look like a aberration type of player.
There's nothing wrong with having 2 Tommy Edmonds. The one is really good. And if you have another guy as versatile as Edmund is and Donovan is, you play them both, or you find spots for both those guys to play. You can put them anywhere in the lineup, anywhere on the field. And this guy's hit 5th, he's hit 9th, he's hit 1st, he's hit 2nd. Donovan, I mean, and he's a player. And they're going to have, when Carlson and O'Neill come back, they're going to have more players than positions, and Marmol will have his hands full trying to get all those guys time, including Albert, and including Dickerson. Although it's hard to believe Dickerson will survive all that, but he had 2 home runs today, albeit one of them off of first baseman. But Albert's time may be cut into also, because Yepes is going to have to get at-bats too.
And Albert, I was checking this morning, Albert Pujols, he has the most at-bats as a DH against right-handed pitching so far. And, I mean, look, we all revere the guy and the career he's had, but that's not a good thing. I mean, and the numbers, of course, show that. He draws walks against them, but other than that, I mean, really, really low batting average in the 100s and not all that much with the slugging. So, yeah, I don't think that's a good thing, with all due respect to the great Pujols, to have him taking the most at-bats against right-handed pitching as a DH.
No, but they're close enough this year to being a really good offensive club, but it's beneficial to have him around just as an advisor and part-time player. I would not let him go.
Right.
Having Pujols not be in the dugout would be a mistake, but you may have to play him twice a week rather than 4 times a week, and mostly against left-handed pitchers, as you point out. And they'll eventually come across a few of those.
Yeah, I mean, and he's clobbered them. I mean, his numbers are fantastic against lefties. It's just not enough opportunities. So, hey, Commish, before we let you get on with your Friday night, I just want to know if you have an opinion on the Phillies letting Joe Girardi go, firing him earlier today.
Well, I like Joe Girardi. He's a good man. He was a good manager in Miami. He was a good manager in New York, and he's a good manager. Now they've had some injuries with the Phillies there. Their pitching hasn't been as good as they thought it was going to be, and Harper's been playing compromised, and now Segura's out for 3 or 4 months. He just got hurt, a couple of days ago. So that Girardi was under the gun a long time before that, probably. But their pitching just has been abysmal. I mean, Schwarber's given them, 12 home runs and hitting him 190 like you figured he would. And they got a pretty good lineup. Really, they should have Hoskins and Bohm and those other guys, Harper and Realmuto. But you got to pitch. And it looks worse because the Mets just ran off from everybody. If they were, what the record they are now in 4 or 5 games, that's different. But they're like 12 out.
I know.
And the Mets are just running like they're going to take this to the house any minute now. And, oh, yes, we'll have DeGrom back one of these years, one of these months, I should say. And they've done that without their best pitcher, and a couple other guys have been hurt too. For them. It's too bad for Joe, and that's 3 times now. I don't know that a guy like that, an older guy, not ancient, but a guy who's managed 3 times in the big leagues, and I don't think he gets a 4th shot probably.
Yeah, I think. Probably not. And I wonder about Dave Dombrowski, too. We all know he's built multiple winning teams, really good teams, but he may be a little stale by now. I mean, I don't say, hey, I'm an old guy, too. It's not like I'm practicing age discrimination here, but he's sort of from a different era, and I don't know that he's really, really crazy about some of the stuff going on, and he's maybe a little rebellious. And I admire that in a way, but I just don't know. I mean, his solution has always been just throw as much money as you can at the problem, and the Phillies have done that, and it ain't working very well. So I wonder about him. I wonder if the owner is wondering about him. We'll find out soon enough, I guess.
Well, I suspect so. I mean, they haven't done a real good job of improving their bullpen. And Wheeler and Nola, they still have 2 of the top, probably 10 or 12 starting pitchers, right-handed starting pitchers in the league. But there's a gap after that, and the bullpen is, well, it's pretty sketchy business there. And shoot, they got off to kind of a mediocre start, and the Mets just left them in the dust, and the Mets just beat them up over the weekend too, which everybody saw. A couple of games were on national TV, Phillies are, I think, done for the year. I mean, that's going to be a hard job for anybody to take over and try to make something out of it in the last 2/3 of the season, because they're not going to catch the Mets. The only team that can catch the Mets in that division is the Braves, because they got pitching, and they got a World Series champion lineup still, mostly intact with Acuna back. So they're going to make a run. They may not get to the division title, but I'd hate to play the Braves in a wild card round if they ever get there.
Yeah, you're 100% right. 100% right. Commish, always a pleasure on Friday, man. Always a pleasure. And we'll talk again next week, hopefully.
I look forward to that. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Have a great weekend.
You bet. You too.
That's our great friend for many, many years, Rick Hummel, here on The Bernie Show. Jimmy Hugher, I'll never forget the first time I met the commish.
Oh, this ought to be good.
It's a low-key story, but it makes me happy. It was 1983, and I was down there helping out in spring training, covering the Orioles at the old Miami Stadium down there, which was a dump, but it was kind of a fun place to be. So the baseball writer, the guy who was on the Orioles beat, and a good writer, he was playing basketball or something, and he just absolutely shredded his knee to the point where he needed like an entire reconstruction, And he had to go get surgery, and they called me up, my editors, and listen, I was not ready to take over a baseball beat. In fact, I was nervous as hell because they were
good Oriole teams too. Then.
Yeah, and they went on to win the World Series that year.
Yeah.
So they told me I had to basically, I was on my own. I had to cover the Orioles the rest of spring training. It was pretty early in spring training, so I was a nervous wreck, and I encountered some veteran baseball writers, and they looked at me like, "Who's this punk?" And I was very well mannered and very respectful. I wasn't doing what I do now, which is like run my mouth. I knew my place. But guys weren't. Some of the older baseball writers weren't very friendly, and I kind of felt like I was being frozen out. And it was just like one of those deals where you just feel bad about it. You're down there all alone, and even though I loved my job, it's just kind of like, man, this isn't too much fun. It's like I feel like everywhere I go, there's somebody, looking down on me and kind of treating me like crap, even though I've done nothing to deserve it. And that includes some baseball people, including one of my idols, Frank Robinson, like downright cruel for no reason.
Oh, wow.
So Bill Verdon was another guy like that. Remember him?
Yes.
The Missouri name. So
yeah.
I could name more. But anyway, it was a tough time. And I was feeling kind of blue. I really was. And Friday night, the Cardinals are playing the Orioles in Miami, and it might have been about the second or third inning. And our paper had our own little press booth in there, with the door that would close and all this stuff. And I hear someone knocking on the door, and I open it up, and here's this guy with glasses and a big smile, and he had white hair and kind of I mean this in a good way, eccentric looking, and it was Rick Hummel. And I knew who Rick Hummel was, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't like, because I knew who all the writers were, because I looked up to all these guys. He could not have been nicer. He had no reason to be nice. He went out of his way to treat me like a peer and to be supportive and to make me feel welcome. And, it was 20 minutes that changed the rest of spring training for me. I just felt so good after that. And the way Kamish is, like, he's that kind of guy. But, man, I don't even know if I ever told him that. What he did for me. He doesn't even know it. What he did for me when I was just down there with my head spinning and, dauber down and all that stuff. He just couldn't have been. The timing of that was just amazing. So that's Rick Hummel. That's why I love him so dearly and always will.
That is an awesome story, and that explains a lot about why he is as good a guy as I don't know him real well, but in the short time I've gotten to know him, that explains a lot. Because people who go out of their way to do those types of things throughout life, they're special, and they're good people. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of them. But that's an awesome story. I appreciate that a lot.
I knew you would. I knew you would. Because when you're young and starting out, and if people are treating you like you're some dirt bag that shouldn't be in their presence. That's for an older guy. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, you know what, go fly a kite or whatever. I'd actually say something else like that. But when you're a young guy, man, and you're nervous anyway because you're not really ready to cover baseball full time as a beat writer,
Yeah.
And it was not much fun, but it changed after that. I felt good about it, at least until Eddie Murray confronted me on the team bus.
I was going to say, I know it was somebody from the Orioles did something.
Yeah, like on the way to the final spring training game in Palm Beach or whatever, and then they were going to fly home. And in those days, writers were allowed to travel to start the season, so we're going to fly home, and the traveling secretary told me to take the bus, get on the third bus, and I did. And I figured I was okay, but I apparently sat. I went down
back?
Too many rows, too far back.
Yeah.
And I wasn't all the way back. It was about middle bus, I'd say. And then all of a sudden, Eddie Murray's in my face screaming at me. Who do you think you are? Get your ass out of here. You don't belong here. Did you hear me? Get your ass out. I mean, he just went nuts.
Oh.
The Orioles had a left-handed starter named Scott McGregor. You may remember him.
Yes.
Scott McGregor had mercy on me, and he said, look, come up here, take my seat. It's fine. Everything's fine. And it still wasn't good enough for Eddie Murray. He was hollering at me. Still. Had to go up further, right? And the bus is crammed, right?
Right.
Remember the Orioles had an outfielder named Al Bumbry?
Yes, center fielders, leadoff guy. Yeah.
So Al Bumbry walks to where I was, and he says, look, why don't we do this? We'll switch seats, he says. And, this is like a prisoner exchange. I'll sit back here.
Right.
And I'll get you out of the line of fire with Eddie. So, I mean, that was not a fun day either.
Oh,
but
boy.
I laugh about it now. It's fun to think about it. So, anyway.
Great story, because I know I've been on some of those buses, and you're like,
boy,
I don't belong in this spot. I need to
It is tough.
Yep.
And I kept telling Eddie, I said, well, the guy's name was Phil Itzo, who had major power with the Orioles, their traveling secretary, great guy. I said, Phil Itzo specifically told me to get on the bus and grab any seat. I said, why are you hollering at me?
Right.
He's like, I don't give a damn what he told you. Get out. And I'm like, jeez.
You want to yell, he told me to sit here.
I know.
Yell at him.
Not a fun experience.
No.
Oh, by the way,